all I'd like to say was a wonderful film. I really enjoyed it. Do we have any questions? Okay. Where we have one?
I got a booming voice for you. Okay, they found papers. Do you want that a little further because it was kind of like mysterious out of the lab, we are where they are?
So when we first met him, he was this rescue horse. He was living in a prison. I thought that was a kind of an interesting story. We sort of started to follow the story a little bit. He was Blackie, he lived in a prison. And I went back to the place where he was seized from. And I guess when the state goes in and seizes horses, there's not a lot of niceties of like handing the papers along with the horse. It just kind of doesn't go down that way. But I said to the woman where he was seized from, if you ever find the papers, would you give them to me? Would you let me have them? And she said, absolutely. I can't find them. I don't know where they are. The man who bought them, he didn't keep good fobs, et cetera, et cetera. So a year went by, and then 1 year later, this woman called me and said, I have to have this horse's papers, if you want to come get them. So of course it was a rainy night, very dramatic, 3-hour drive to Connecticut. And I went in and I picked up the papers, and I don't know a lot about horse breeding, but I picked them up, and I saw Oswald throughout, so I went online, of course, and realized that there were people that were writing about Oswald. I loved the Oswald line, et cetera, et cetera. But I also saw for the very first time the horse's real name. So 8:30 at night, I went to the barn, and if you know horses, it's very quiet at 8:30 at night. They're just munching on their hay. And I went down the aisle, and I stopped a few stalls before his, and I said, I'd always called him Blackie, and I said, midnight, and his neck just flipped up. And it was like for the first time in years and years, someone had actually called him by his actual name. And of course I got to read. And that was it. So yeah, it was just kind of good luck. There was a lot of good luck through this story. My good luck was finding John Moore, who I actually call a really good friend of mine now. He just taught me how to move cattle a month ago. Went out to Montana, which was something. But just to find someone like him who knows so much about horse breeding and the Oswald line. So there was just sort of every time there was a question we hit a dead end, there was someone there who just sort of opened the door.
Really finding finding the papers really made the film, because there was more of a story than just a horse that was rescued and rehabilitated. So it was lucky indeed, because then we got to go back to Montana and interview all those people, and that's why we have the film in.
I have a quick question. When did you know and decide that you were going to make a film about this?
I think the day I knew it was the day I got the phone call with the papers. I made one film before with my husband, who was in the audience, and it was a story about the Amish puppy mills, and HBO bought it. So we're very, very lucky. So I made that film, and it's really hard work. It takes all of you have no money in your savings account when you're done making a documentary, although it's really gratifying. And I pitched HBO on it. I said, there's a story of this horse, and he's living in prison, and they just sort of sat there and were like, I'm glad you're excited, but we're not. And I think the day I got the phone call on the papers, I just knew, I just had this feeling. All of a sudden, this rescue horse was really important. It became this fairy tale, and I read Misty of Chincoteague and Black Beauty and the Black Stallion and all those things when I was a young girl. But all of a sudden it was a fairy tale. And I realized that I had this fairy tale in my hands, and it wasn't about the humans, although there's some wonderful humans in the film who do great stuff. It was about this horse, this hero, that seemed to get himself out of really tragic situations. There was something, and as John explains, he has this, they have this bottom. These Oswald horses, they have this bottom. You know, and he was the one who planted himself in front of that woman in Connecticut, and you know, they were trying to go on a trail ride, and midnight wouldn't let them get by. It's like he forced people to pay attention to him. So I don't know, I guess I was just really excited by that fairy tale. You know, it starts off kind of really beautiful, it's really, really sad, and at the end it's really happy again.
Can you tell us about the music? It's beautiful.
Yeah.
We listen, thank you. We listen to a lot of music. I know every night I went, spent about 2 or 3 hours and went to sleep listening to Western music. It was very important to find the right music. It couldn't be too happy, too fast. It had to be, you know, the lyrics had to make sense and go with the story. So it was a process, but we love where we landed. Love the music.
And John Moore, as you can tell, he's a tough guy. And he took it upon himself to make sure that we understood Montana. The Badlands, Montana music. He said, it's not country music, Kelly, it's Montana music. You need to listen to some Dave Stadians and Ian Tyson. These are the people that I listen to and all my cowboy friends and rancher friends listen to. So he really tutored us so that we depicted this, the Badlands of Montana in a really accurate way.
One question.
Was he when you rescued him?
He was, when Diane sold him, when she sent him to auction, he was 14. When he, so he spent kind of 4 years being bounced around, whether he was living at that farm or whether he was in the prison. When we got him, he was 18, and he's 22 now. He just turned 22 in May. And he lives really well, and you know, he has I don't believe in keeping animals alive, unless, if that's not their will. He has an amazing life. I make sure I put a saddle on him every single weekend, a couple times a weekend. There's someone who rides him during the week, and he seems to really, he likes to have that purpose. He's not a horse that you sort of goo goo gaga around and kiss too much. He's just got this independence and this dignity, and he lives a really great life now.
Another question right here.
Thank you. You took all the heat off of me. I was afraid to ask, how is he today?
Yeah. No, he's really good. You know, we spent a lot of time because he came to us with a lot of injuries. When he first came to us, as Elena said, he had a medical record that was like as thick as a Bible. And there's certain things that will never be fixed. That you just can't fix them. But what you can do is make him really, really comfortable. And he's really, really comfortable now. He has a new filly next door, a Mustang moved next door, and that seemed to really put a spring in his step at age 22. So yeah.
And all the people in the film, you saw in the film, take really, really good care of him. They're very dedicated. So.
Do you know what caused the respiratory problems?
Yeah. He has in one lung he has 20% capacity. So when he was living out, he was basically living outdoors. And I think the backstory there is, you know, he was a 14-year-old barrel horse, an Oswald, even you know, to boot. And I think the man who bought him at the Massachusetts auction tried to cowboy up on him. And I understand that didn't go very well. So I think it really angered this man, and that's when he cast him out into the woods. And he had pneumonia a couple times. When the vets looked at him, he had pneumonia, and it had been untreated. So you know, there's nothing you can do about that. That you know, he lives on a pretty significant dosage of pred, but he lives well. Yeah.
You have a question right here.
The people that court case that the man was prohibited from ever having more than 2 or 3 horses, something like that. I mean, the man was an older guy, and he had well over 100 horses and kind of a small property. So I actually didn't get followed. Of course, I know what happened, but I didn't follow the court case too much. That could have been a place we rented this story, is to really, really follow that. And I felt like I really want to tell the story of this one horse. Because we hear about these cruelty cases, and there are 28 horses or $50 or whatever the numbers are. And I kind of am intrigued with the notion of like who that each creature is. But yeah, that man is prohibited from ever having sort of any number of horses again.
There's another question right here. Or, no?
If you guys,
If the filmmakers want to say anything else to close, or we have time for one more question. There's a question. Yes, there's a question over here.
First off, thank you for this beautiful story. We used to own horses. Were you able to breed with him?
I think she said you look great.
Oh, did you say I look great with him?
No, I don't want to doing what you did for the horse, but my question was, were you able to breed with him since he had such great lineage?
Oh, that's such a great, I love that you asked that question. So we made this film, and John and I, we're very different people, right? He's a Montana rancher, I'm a New York City girl. We've become really, really good friends. And he teaches me a lot about, obviously, he taught me a lot about line breeding and quarter horse breeding. And we just agreed, 2 months ago, to start a very small breeding operation to preserve the Oswald line. Now, I can't do it with Midnight because he's a gelding, but there are some places where they do have Oswalds, and we want to preserve the line. It's a very old-fashioned line. It's not they're not like sort of winning at all the rodeos right now, but they're an important American ranch horse. So yeah, we're eventually going to create some Oswalds.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was really fun to watch the movie with you guys.